They called me broken, barren, a failure. For years, I carried the weight of an empty cradle while my husband's cruel words carved deeper than any knife. But I had a secret. One locked away in a manila envelope, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Watch as a humiliated wife turns the tables in the most devastating way possible. A dinner party, a medical report, a single truth that will shatter his perfect lies forever. This isn't just revenge. It's justice served ice cold. Before we continue with the story, tell us where you're watching from. If you like this story, hit that subscribe button because tomorrow we have a special story for you. One you won't want to miss. The clinic smelled like antiseptic and false hope. I remember that much. The kind of sterile, lifeless air that makes you want to scrub your skin raw just to feel something real again. I sat there, fingers digging into my thighs, while the doctor flipped through my file like it was a grocery list. His lips moved, words like comprehensive tests and unexplained factors. But all I heard was the blood rushing in my ears. Then he slid the envelope across the desk. Male infertility confirmed. 3 words. That's all it took to shatter the lie I'd been choking on for years. I should have felt something. Rage, vindication, anything. But all I could think about was Johnson's voice the night before, dripping with that faux sympathy he'd perfected. Maybe, if you weren't so stressed all the time, your body would cooperate. He'd said it over dinner, between bites of the salmon I'd cooked to perfection, like he was commenting on the weather. Like my worth began and ended with a function I was supposedly failing at. The doctor was still talking, something about options and support groups, but I was already folding the paper, tucking it into my bag like a secret, or a weapon. I hadn't decided yet. Outside, the sky was the kind of blue that felt like a personal insult. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, replaying every sneer, every backhanded prayer, every time Johnson had turned away from me in bed like I was the broken one. The envelope sat heavy in my lap. I could have driven straight home, thrown it on the counter, watched his face crumple. But where's the justice in that? Men like Johnson don't learn from truth. They learn from consequences. So I waited. Let him dig the hole deeper. Let him hang himself with his own rope. By the time I pulled into our driveway, my hands were steady. Inside, Johnson's laughter spilled from his office. Another call with the guys, another round of golf plans I wasn't invited to. I slipped the envelope into the back of my drawer, right next to the jewellery box he'd given me on our anniversary. Empty, just like everything else. Upstairs, I ran the shower scalding hot, letting the steam fog the mirror so I wouldn't have to look at myself. The water drowned out the sound of his phone pinging. Another message, probably. Another reminder that the world would always revolve around him. I turned off the faucet, silence. Somewhere downstairs, a cabinet slammed. Johnson's voice, loud enough to carry, "Anna, where's my dinner?" I smiled. Let him feast while he still could. The pills sat untouched in the medicine cabinet, their orange plastic bottle gathering dust behind Johnson's expensive cologne. Every morning, I'd listen to him rattle off his routine, shower, shave, a critical glance at his reflection, before he'd pause, just for a second, to glare at that bottle like it had personally betrayed him. "You forget again?" he'd ask, though we both knew I hadn't. I'd shrug, stir cream into my coffee, let the silence stretch until it choked him. "Christ, Anna, it's like you're not even trying." That was his favourite word, trying, as if my entire existence had narrowed down to a performance for his approval, as if every dinner I cooked, every shirt I ironed, every forced smile I offered his colleagues wasn't proof enough that I'd spent years trying to fit into the hollow mould he'd built for me. The worst part wasn't the insults. It was the audience. At his firm summer gala, I wore emerald green, a colour his mother once said brought out the life in a woman's eyes. Johnson spent the night steering partners' wives toward me, their pitying glances lingering on my flat stomach. "You're so brave," one whispered, as if infertility were a war I'd chosen to fight. Then came the toast. Johnson, flushed with scotch and second-hand glory, raised his glass. "To family, the ones we have and the ones we—" He trailed off, gaze flickering to me. The room held its breath. "Well, you know," laughter, clinking glasses. Someone murmured, "Poor guy." I sipped my champagne, the bubbles sharp on my tongue, and imagined cracking the flute across his teeth. Later, in the car, he had the nerve to be offended. "You embarrassed me tonight." "Did I?" I watched the streetlights blur past. "Funny, I thought that was your job." He slammed on the brakes so hard my seatbelt locked. "You think this is a joke? I'm the last of my line because you—" "Because me?" I turned to him slowly. "Finish the sentence, Johnson. Say it out loud." His jaw worked. He couldn't, not when the truth might actually leave his lips. The engine roared back to life. That night, I lay awake, tracing the cracks in our ceiling while he snored beside me. The envelope in my drawer seemed to pulse in the dark. A living thing. Soon, I promised it. Soon. The potato salad was perfect, creamy with just the right bite of mustard, which made it all the more satisfying when I dumped it straight into the trash. The plastic container landed with a hollow thud, the sound echoing through our spotless kitchen. I wiped my hands slowly, methodically, like a surgeon scrubbing out of an operation. Johnson's sister's house smelled like charcoal and privilege. Laughter spilled from the backyard, where his family clustered around the grill, their champagne flutes catching the afternoon light. I lingered in the doorway, watching them. They looked like a stock photo. Happy family enjoys perfect life. Then his sister spotted me. "Anna!" Her smile was all teeth. "We were starting to think you'd gotten lost." "Traffic," I lied, handing her the store-bought pie I'd picked up on the way. Her nose wrinkled. Store-bought? How tragic, before she recovered, ushering me toward the patio where Johnson held court. He didn't even glance up. "Just saying, some people aren't cut out for parenthood," he was drawling to his brother-in-law, swirling his beer for emphasis. "Like, biologically, it's nature's way of weeding out the weak." The circle of men chuckled. Someone clapped him on the back. I felt it then, a crack in the dam, deep and seismic. "Funny," I said, sweet as arsenic. "I didn't realize you were such an expert on biology, Johnson." The laughter died. His head snapped toward me, eyes narrowing. "You're late." "I was busy." I took a sip of someone's abandoned wine. "Reading." His sister swooped in, all false cheer. "How's the, process going?" Her gaze dropped to my stomach like it was a faulty appliance. Johnson answered for me. "Slow, but we're praying." The way he said it made prayer sound like an accusation. The pie knife glinted on the table. For one dizzying second, I imagined driving it through his hand. Instead, I smiled. "Actually, we got test results back." The air went taut. Johnson froze mid-sip. His mother perked up. "And?" I let the silence stretch until it ached. Then, "Turns out, I'm fine." Johnson's glass hit the patio with a crack. I stood, brushing imaginary crumbs from my dress. "Oh, don't look so shocked, sweetheart. You did say it was all in my head." The ride home was glacial. He white-knuckled the wheel, jaw clenched so tight I could hear his molars grinding. When we pulled into the driveway, he finally exploded. "What the hell was that?" I unclicked my seatbelt, calm as a sniper. "The truth. You humiliated me." "No," I said, opening the car door. "I just stopped lying for you." The IVF brochure sat between us at breakfast like a peace offering. Glossy photos of smiling babies. Success rates in bold font, the whole pathetic production. Johnson had circled a clinic number in red ink. the way he used to highlight mistakes in my grocery lists. Dr. West comes highly recommended, he said, tapping the page. Harvard trained, 80% success rate with cases like yours. Yours, not ours. Never ours. I stirred my tea, watching the steam curl. Expensive? Money isn't the issue. He said it like we were discussing a car upgrade. I wanted to laugh. Money had always been the issue. His mother's trust fund, his father's connections, the prenup his lawyers had drafted before we'd even picked China patterns. But now, suddenly, cost was no object. The realization tasted bitterer than my tea. He was scared. I let my eyes go wide, vulnerable. You'd really do this? His shoulders relaxed. This was familiar territory. Me, the grateful supplicant. Him, the magnanimous saviour. Of course, we're in this together. The lie hung between us, ripe and sweet as rotting fruit. I reached across the table, squeezed his hand. Thank you. The clinic was all soft lighting and hushed voices, the kind of place where tragedy got wrapped in euphemisms. Challenging journey, miracle babies. The receptionist handed me forms with a sympathetic smile. Johnson flipped through a golf magazine in the waiting room, one ankle propped on his knee like this was a routine oil change. When the nurse called us back, he pocketed his phone with a sigh. Dr. West had the practiced calm of someone who delivered bad news for a living. She reviewed my charts, nodding. Excellent ovarian reserve, no blockages. Then she turned to Johnson. We'll need fresh samples from you today. His head snapped up. Me? Standard procedure. She pushed a cup across the desk. Room B has magazines if you need inspiration. I bit my lip to keep from smiling. 20 minutes later, he emerged pale and sweaty-handed, the cup conspicuously empty. The nurse gave him a pitying look. Performance anxiety is common. We can schedule another attempt. His jaw twitched. Just resend the damn forms. That night he drank heavily, muttering about humiliation and invasive questions. I curled against him, playing my part. It'll be okay. He gripped my wrist too tight. We're not telling anyone about this. As if I dreamt of sharing his shame. The next morning, I called the clinic from a payphone. Cancel all future appointments for Mr. Whitmore. Then I dialed my lawyer. The country club's crystal chandeliers threw fractured light across the ballroom, each prism a tiny dagger slicing through the pretense. I adjusted the plunging neckline of my red dress. Too bold for Johnson's taste, too revealing for the pastor's wife currently clutching her pearls at my approach. Perfect. Darling Miranda Whitmore III. Yes, the third, as if being a twice-divorced trust fund brat was a royal lineage. Air kissed my cheeks, her perfume a cloying mix of gardenias and desperation. We were just discussing the sad state of modern marriage. Her beady eyes flicked to my left hand. Still no baby bump, I see. The circle of women tittered, their diamond rings catching the light like warning flares. I let my smile go wistful. Johnson's been private about our struggles. A calculated sip of champagne, especially after his last test results. Miranda's martini paused mid-sip. Test results? The music swelled, a waltz Johnson and I should have been leading. Instead, he was across the room, schmoozing his boss with that smarmy grin that never quite reached his eyes. I lowered my voice to a whisper. The fertility specialist said, a deliberate hesitation. Never mind. He'd kill me for talking about it. Miranda's claws dug into my forearm. Honey, this is me. What did the doctor say? The lie unfurled like silk. Performance anxiety, low motility, the hushed suggestion of donor sperm that had sent Johnson into a week-long rage. By the time I dabbed at non-existent tears, Miranda's face was a grotesque mask of predatory pity. "Oh, you poor thing," she breathed, already mentally composing the mass email to her book club. "No wonder he's been so tense at the club." I excused myself to freshen up, leaving my clutch positioned just so on the chair. Inside, peeking from beneath my lipstick, was a carefully folded copy of Johnson's empty specimen cup receipt. The powder room mirror showed a stranger. Flushed cheeks, smudged mascara, the ghost of a real smile. I repaired my lipstick slowly, savouring the distant roar of laughter from the ballroom. Johnson's voice rose above the din, sharp with panic. "Complete fabrication. My sperm count is fine." A masculine chuckle. "Sure, buddy. That's why you're sweating through your tux." When I emerged, the crowd had formed a loose semicircle around Johnson, whose face had gone the colour of bad steak. His boss clapped him on the shoulder. Too hard. "Relax, champ. They make pills for that now." Johnson's gaze locked onto mine. The realization hit him like a gut punch. I'd orchestrated this. I raised my glass in a silent toast. The invitation list wrote itself. His boss, the Andersons, Miranda Whitmore III, who would arrive early and leave late, hungry for more drama, and a carefully curated selection of people Johnson desperately needed to impress. I addressed each envelope in looping cursive, the ink dark as a bruise. Johnson hovered in the doorway, watching me work. "Since when do you care about entertaining?" "Since I realised how much it matters to you." I smiled up at him, all wide-eyed devotion. "We should show them we're stronger than ever." His shoulders relaxed. This was language he understood. Keeping up appearances, controlling the narrative. He didn't notice the deliberate placement of the guest list. His golf buddy who'd leaked the sperm count joke to the club, the junior partner gunning for his promotion, the neighbour who'd once asked if my barrenness was contagious. I ordered his favourite wine, the overpriced Bordeaux he saved for clients, and hired a chef to prepare the meal he always bragged about, but never actually cooked. The morning of the party, I slipped into a black sheath dress, the kind that hugged every curve without begging for attention. Johnson eyed me appreciatively for the first time in months. "You look good." I fastened my pearls slowly. "I know." The doorbell rang at precisely 7. Miranda arrived first, as predicted, her gaze darting around for signs of marital discord. Johnson's boss followed, already 3 fingers deep in the bourbon. As the house filled with laughter and the clink of crystal, I watched Johnson hold court, his confidence returning with every sip of wine. He regaled them with work stories, his hand resting possessively on my lower back. No one noticed when I excused myself to retrieve the envelope from my desk, or how steady my hands were as I slid it into my clutch. The crystal stem of my wineglass caught the light as I rose, sending fractured shards of gold dancing across the tablecloth. Every eye snapped to me, Miranda's pupils dilated with voyeuristic hunger, Mr. Anderson's bushy eyebrows climbing toward his receding hairline, Johnson's boss pausing mid-chew of an overpriced canapé. Johnson's smile didn't falter, but his fingers twitched against the table. "Anna, sweetheart, sit down, the tiramisu's coming." I'm sure it'll be delicious." I let my clutch dangle carelessly from 2 fingers, the weight of the envelope inside making it sway like a pendulum. "But first, there's something you've been meaning to share with everyone." His forehead glistened under the chandelier. "Not now." I tilted my head, the picture of wifely concern. "You always said honesty was important." Miranda leaned forward, her champagne flute leaving a wet ring on the linen. "Share what? Exactly?" The room hummed with anticipation. Even the server hovering by the kitchen door had gone still, his tray of espresso cups forgotten. Johnson reached for my wrist. "Whatever this is, we'll discuss it later." I slipped free with a laugh that sounded like wind chimes. Don't be shy, darling. With a magician's flourish, I produced the envelope. After all these years of praying over my faulty biology, don't you think it's time we told the truth? His breath hitched. He knew. The paper whispered as I slid it down the table, past the half-eaten chocolate torte, through a puddle of spilled Cabernet, coming to rest against his water glass. For 3 excruciating heartbeats, no one moved. Then Miranda, bless her vicious soul, snatched it up. Oh, for heaven's sake, let's see! Her acrylic nail tore through the seal. Johnson lunged, but his boss intercepted, plucking the papers free. The man's lips moved silently as he scanned the results, his expression shifting from curiosity to dawning horror. Jesus Christ, Whitmore! He dropped the page like it had burned him. You? The document fluttered to the table, the bolded diagnosis facing up for all to see. Azoospermia. 0 viable sperm count. Miranda gasped. The junior partner stifled a laugh. Johnson's face drained of colour, his mouth working soundlessly like a fish tossed onto dry land. I took a leisurely sip of wine. Funny, isn't it? My voice carried effortlessly in the stunned silence. All those years you spent blaming me, mocking me, making me feel broken. I trailed a finger along the edge of the report. Turns out the problem was never in my ovaries. Johnson made a strangled noise. You bitch. Now, I tisked, gathering my purse. Is that any way to speak to the woman who just saved you thousands in fertility treatments? Time didn't freeze. It shattered. The envelope lay between us like a live grenade, its pin long pulled. Johnson's hands hovered over it, trembling as if touching the paper might make the words real. Around us, the dinner party guests had gone perfectly still, their collective breath held. Miranda's wineglass tilted forgotten in her grip, a single drop of Cabernet bleeding onto the tablecloth. I didn't move, didn't blink. Let him be the one to break first. He grabbed the report, his fingers leaving damp smudges on the pristine paper. His lips moved soundlessly as he read the words he'd spent years convincing himself couldn't exist. The colour drained from his face, his skin taking on a sickly grey pallor like a corpse pulled from a river. His boss cleared his throat. Well, this is awkward. A choked laugh escaped the junior partner. Johnson's head snapped up, his eyes wild. You... His voice cracked. You knew? I tilted my head, letting my pearl earring brush my jawline. 5 years, 4 months, and 16 days. My tone was conversational, as if discussing the weather. Funny how the mind holds on to numbers like that. The air left his lungs in a rush. Miranda gasped, clutching her chest like a Victorian heroine. You mean all this time? All this time, I confirmed, swirling my wine. My husband has been blaming me for something his body couldn't do. I met Johnson's gaze, letting the full weight of my silence settle over him. And you never once considered getting tested yourself, did you? His mouth opened, but no sound came out. The junior partner whistled low under his breath. Damn, Whitmore, that's cold. Johnson flinched as if struck. His hands clenched around the paper, crumpling it. This is fake. She forged this. Did I? I reached into my clutch and withdrew a second copy, crisp and untouched. Shall we call Dr. West? She'd be happy to verify. Though, I tapped my chin. I believe you missed your last 3 appointments. Performance anxiety, wasn't it? A strangled noise escaped him. His boss stood abruptly, tossing his napkin onto the table. Christ, I've heard enough. He shot Johnson a look of pure disgust. HR will be in touch Monday. That did it. Johnson lunged across the table, sending glasses crashing to the floor. You ruined me! I didn't flinch, didn't step back, just smiled. Funny, I murmured. I was about to say the same to you. The front door was 23 steps away. I counted them. 1. My heels clicked against marble, steady as a metronome. 2. Miranda's shrill voice cut through the chaos behind me. Well, I never... 3 shattered glass crunched underfoot, the remnants of Johnson's precious Bordeaux. I didn't turn when he shouted my name. Didn't pause when his boss called after me about getting to the bottom of this. The night air hit my face like a blessing, cool and clean, scented with gardenias from the neighbour's yard. My car keys glinted in the porch light. Anna! Johnson's hand grabbed my elbow, his grip slick with sweat. You can't just... I turned slowly. His face was a grotesque mask of fury and fear, his bow tie crooked, his breath reeking of expensive scotch and panic. Behind him, our guests crowded the foyer, their phones already out recording. Perfect. I pried his fingers off my arm one by one. Watch me. His nostrils flared. You'll regret this. You'll what? My laugh was softer than a razor's edge. Sue me? For telling the truth? I leaned in, close enough to smell his cologne, that ridiculous $300 bottle he bought to impress his secretary. Tell me, Johnson, how many times did you call me broken in front of these people? His mouth opened, closed. I didn't wait for an answer. The car started on the first try. As I backed down the driveway, I caught the final glimpse through our bay window. Johnson slumped against the doorframe, his perfect hair dishevelled, his perfect life unravelling. The Andersons were already herding their kids to their car. Miranda was probably composing a text. I rolled down the windows, let the wind tear through my hair. The envelope's twin sat snug in my glove compartment, next to the divorce papers my lawyer had FedExed that morning. Somewhere behind me, sirens wailed. I smiled. Let him explain that to the neighbours. By noon, the fallout was already beautiful. My phone buzzed like a dying wasp against the granite countertop of my new downtown apartment. The one Johnson didn't know about, leased under an LLC my lawyer had set up months ago. I sipped my coffee, black and bitter, and scrolled through the wreckage with detached amusement. Miranda Whitmore III, 12:03 p.m. Darling, we're all so worried. The things he said after you left. Simply awful. Call me. I could almost hear her salivating through the screen. The real masterpiece, though, was the email chain forwarded by my lawyer. Johnson's frantic messages to his HR department demanding they contain the situation before the board meeting next week. Too late. The junior partner had already leaked the dinner party footage to the firm's managing director, complete with Johnson's slurred rant about hysterical bitches making up medical records. I traced the rim of my mug. Poetic, really. He'd spent years building his reputation as the golden boy, the reliable one, the heir apparent. Now, the office Slack channels were calling him No Count Whitmore. The doorbell rang. I didn't bother checking the peephole. Only one person had this address. My lawyer, Rebecca, strode in like a storm front, her briefcase snapping open before she'd fully cleared the threshold. He's panicking. She slapped a stack of papers onto the island. Frozen accounts, cancelled meetings, his mother's even flown in. I flipped through the documents. Credit card statements showing charges at seedy motels. Texts to his assistant that would make a porn star blush. The pièce de résistance? A sworn affidavit from the clinic nurse about his performance issues. Rebecca's grin was all teeth. Alienation of affection, emotional abuse, and... She produced a USB. Security footage from the country club locker room. Turns out your husband's been, supplementing his manhood with other men's wives for years? I plugged it into my laptop. The video loaded, Johnson, red-faced and sweaty, fumbling with some blonde belt buckle while slurring, "My wife's frigid, you understand." I closed the lid. "Send it to the board." Rebecca arched a brow. "All of it?" I thought of the way he'd smirked when his sister asked if I'd considered surrogacy. The nights I'd spent staring at the ceiling while he snored. The envelope gathering dust in my drawer. "Every last bite." The courthouse smelled like stale coffee and broken promises. I arrived early, dressed in the same cream-coloured suit I'd worn to our rehearsal dinner, a detail Johnson would recognise immediately. Let him remember how hopeful I'd looked that day, how bright-eyed and trusting. Let him choke on the contrast. His lawyer, some silver-haired shark from his father's firm, was already at the defendant's table, whispering furiously. Johnson sat slumped beside him, his once pristine suit wrinkled, his hair greasy. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Good. Rebecca nudged me as we took our seats. He's offering a settlement. I didn't glance at the papers she slid over. How much? Half the house, your retirement funds, alimony for 2 years. A laugh bubbled up my throat. After everything, the humiliation, the affairs, the years of gaslighting, he still thought this was negotiable. The judge entered. Johnson straightened, shooting me a look that might have been pleading if it weren't so pathetically entitled. His lawyer stood first. Your Honour, my client is prepared to... Your client, Rebecca interrupted, is prepared to sign over the deed to the marital home, 70% of his stock portfolio, and lifetime alimony, or... She tapped her briefcase. We go public with the footage of him snorting cocaine off a paralegal's thighs at last year's Christmas party? The colour drained from Johnson's face. His lawyer spluttered. That's blackmail. Rebecca smiled. It's leverage. The judge sighed, rubbing his temples. Counsellors, my chambers, now. They disappeared behind oak doors, leaving Johnson and me alone for the first time since the dinner party. His knee bounced under the table, his fingers drumming a frantic rhythm. You didn't have to destroy me, he muttered. I turned slowly. Yes, I did. His jaw clenched. I loved you. The lie was so absurd I almost pitied him. Almost. The doors swung open. Rebecca strode out victorious. The judge didn't even sit back down, just announced from the doorway, settlement approved as submitted. Johnson made a strangled noise. His lawyer wouldn't meet his eyes. I stood, smoothing my skirt. No dramatic speeches, no tears. Just the quiet click of my heels as I walked away from the man who'd spent a decade making me feel small. Rebecca fell into step beside me. The house is yours by noon. His things are already in storage. Sunlight streamed through the courthouse windows as we stepped outside. Somewhere, a bird sang. I breathed deep. Finally. The nursery had been the last room I emptied. Sunlight streamed through the half-open curtains as I ran my fingers along the freshly painted walls. No more pale yellow, just cool, clean white. The rocking chair Johnson's mother had gifted us, with that pointed, when the time comes, now sat on a neighbour's porch. The mobile, the tiny socks, the ultrasound frames, all donated to a women's shelter. I knelt beside the single remaining item, an antique cradle we'd bought at a flea market during our first year of marriage. The wood was smooth under my palms, the carvings worn soft by generations of rocking. A key turned in the front door. Anna? Rebecca's heels clicked down the hallway. The locksmith's finished. You're officially... She stopped in the doorway, taking in the empty room, the cradle. Oh. I didn't look up. I thought about burning it. She leaned against the doorframe, silent. Then I realised. I stood, brushing dust from my knees. This isn't a tragedy. It's a blank slate. The doorbell rang. The delivery man held a long box. Live plants, he said, handing me a clipboard. Sign here. Rebecca raised a brow as I brought it inside. More housewarming gifts? I sliced the tape with my house key. Nestled in tissue paper lay a sapling. Slender, but strong, its roots carefully wrapped. The tag read persimmon, symbol of transformation. Rebecca snorted. Subtle. I carried it to the backyard, where fresh earth waited in the centre of the garden. The shovel bit into soil still damp from this morning's rain. Need help? Rebecca asked. I shook my head, lowering the roots into the ground. The cradle would make excellent kindling for the first frost. The ashes would nourish the soil. And in spring, I patted the earth smooth. We'd see what grew.